Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of EFL Teacher Talk with Sean G. I am Sean Gallagher, your host for the most definitely not weekly talk show about all things EFL, English as a foreign language for all of us teachers out there. We're coming back to you after a very long hiatus inspired by COVID and some other things, but we're back in the studio now recording some great content for you, and we have a really great episode for you today. Today's episode is inspired by some conversations we had at the school recently here, and it deals with error correction in your class, specifically pronunciation, correcting students' pronunciation. So we had some great talks with our teachers. It's very difficult to know, when should you correct? When should you not correct? Should you correct? So we had some great discussions, and I thought I'd share with you some of the insights that we came to and some of the policies that we have at my school about error correction, specifically when it comes to student pronunciation. Some of the questions that we looked at was, how do you correct student pronunciation? And almost as important is, when do you correct student pronunciation? Are there times when students are making errors and you don't correct them? So these are all some great issues, and we had some really good discussions, and we have some great policies here at the school that help guide our teachers to try and help teachers teach their students. I think I need to rehearse these more. One of the key issues that we talked about was the ideas of when you're speaking accuracy versus fluency. So it seems like with fluency, kids come in, especially kids or students from an international preschool background, and they might just be little chatterboxes, right? Bah, 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 bah. And they really are comfortable putting with a lot of output. But we've noticed that occasionally there's a lot of errors, either grammatical errors or also pronunciation errors that are in there, and the kid keeps making the same error over and over and over and over and over. And if you do that enough, you can get to point number 2 over here. You can get to fossilization of bad habits. And that's once your brain thinks that it's okay to do something one way, once your brain learns how to do it one way, it's very, very difficult to unlearn that thing. So I think as teachers, it is our responsibility to, when there is a problem, when there is an error that we need to correct, I think we need to think, do we need to correct this thing right now? Is it going to lead to fossilization or not? On the other side of this is interrupting the students and telling them that they're doing something that's incorrect. That pauses everything. It slows everything down. It might lead to students being unmotivated. So if you correct too much, let's say there are a bunch of errors, you can't correct all of them. You have to let some of them slide by, right? So these are some of the issues that we came up. At my school, we have a policy of correcting a pronunciation error, maybe a maximum of about 3 times, and then moving on, whether the student has gotten it or not. Here we go. Here's a very difficult word here, girl, because it has the that hard R in it. A lot of times you'll get students approximating, God, or something to that effect where it's not quite that right? Another good example is the word ship. A lot of times, especially Japanese EFL learners will have that long E sound in the middle of it, so they might say something like sheep instead of ship with the short I. And so this is really, it's really important that they understand that those are 2 different sounds. So in class, if I ask a student, what is it? And they say, it's a sheep. And I'll say, oh, okay, sorry, one more time. It's a sheep. Now they're making the same error over and over. And I'll say, okay, one more time, ready? Ship. And then try to see if they can do it correctly. Can they do it or not? And then sometimes they might get it right. Ship. Or sometimes they might look at you and just say, sheep, and they're not even moving off of, that error that they're on. So I think what we focus on is, even if the student can't do it the correct way or the way that we want them to do it, at least if they abandon the incorrect way, and at least if they're experimenting with some different, tongue positions and some different sounds coming out of their mouth, it's good enough for us. So we might try to correct something maybe about 3 times, and then after that, you just move on. And so, yeah, so if they can't get it the right way, at least let go of the bad way so that thing doesn't get fossilized in their head. So it's our responsibilities as teachers, when we are seeing mistakes, to draw attention to some of those mistakes. But at the same time, we can't draw attention to too many mistakes, because then your class will be really kind of restricted, and the students won't feel like they can experiment and just have fun in your lesson. So it really is kind of a balancing act, which is why we have the scales here on the visual. The final point is error correction with pronunciation. Learning pronunciation, it's a process. It's not an event you'll always have next week. And so, yeah, if your students aren't getting it 100% right the first time, wouldn't worry about it too much, but I would definitely make sure that students are not fossilizing bad habits or erroneous information in their heads. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned next week for more EFL content. Signing out. Bye.